Kevin's boss assigned him the responsibility of locating and eliminating snake pits in the Amazonian rainforest. Although he was used to snakes, the pit he came across in this location seemed unsettling. He was aware that today would not be an ordinary workday. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and to stay tuned for more stories. Kevin made the decision to delay going all the way to the bottom because doing so would undoubtedly result in some very serious injuries. He opted to proceed cautiously instead. One thing stuck out as he searched for whatever it was that the snakes were guarding. There was something significant down there since the snakes appeared to cluster around the pit's center. Quickly, backup showed up, helping Kevin descend the hole. He borrowed some safety equipment from his co-workers, and together they were able to tranquilize the majority of the snakes using sedative darts. The moment Kevin arrived down there, everyone's mouth dropped open. How was this possible, you ask? Kevin had been searching the Amazonian rainforest for snake holes for a few months at this point. He had been putting forth a lot of effort, along with his co-workers, to make sure that everyone could visit the jungle in safety. Finding every pit has been a slow and difficult process. Some of them are quite cunningly concealed. It has gotten increasingly harder because there aren't many roads available and the rainforest is constantly dangerous. They are well behind schedule, and some people have even threatened the business. They revere snakes and favor maintaining the pits. They were forced to proceed because the government had hired Kevin's company. Further into the rainforest, Kevin made the decision to flee. Never had he ventured thus far. Though he afterwards regretted leaving his friends, his survival instincts have since taken over. He was solely concerned with leaving the situation in his mind. He was being closely followed by an anaconda. The anaconda abruptly stopped pursuing Kevin, and at the same instant, Kevin had an odd sensation. He experienced chills because he felt out of place. He went into a section of the jungle that he wasn't permitted to be there. Kevin cautiously made his way around the area in search of his way back because these people revered snakes, making him an enemy to them. At that point, he happened upon an altar. It was a snake altar, which freaked him out. Something was concealed behind it. He observed enormous snakes as he peered down the snake pit. It was obvious that they were guarding whatever was down there. Kevin worked up the guts to at least venture into the snake pit in order to solve this. His strategy wasn't the best. After a short period, Kevin opened his eyes. He realized that a blow dart had struck him just before he attempted to enter the snake pit, tranquilizing him. He was currently a native person's prisoner. He was placed inside a cage next to the snake pit. What would ultimately happen to him? He had a flare gun in his rucksack, which would unquestionably aid him in escaping from this perilous circumstance. His colleagues would be informed by the flare, as well as a military unit helping them empty the pits. Then he noticed his bag. Kevin made the decision that he would be the one to descend there. Kevin swiftly ascended when the snakes were tranquilized. Kevin and those around him both gasped in shock at what they had just witnessed. They determined that they must make a phone call in order to locate the closest animal doctor. The employee who had phoned him reacted in complete disbelief when the call with the veterinarian finished. According to the vet, this snake may be carrying a pregnancy and is going to lay her eggs right here, in the center of the snake pit. The veterinarian has given the staff a risky assignment to ensure that this is the fact. The courageous worker makes the decision to position himself in the most hazardous area in order to ensure the safety of the others. The snake is then stretched by two more courageous workmen who decide to pull it from the water. They were fortunate to be able to do this. The likelihood of it biting them is low because the head is far from the end of the tail. Particularly considering how slowly the snake was traveling before, they take extra safety precautions nonetheless because they still don't want to take a chance. However, they didn't need to worry because the snake put up little resistance and allowed itself to almost fully extend. It is becoming quite clear that there is a serious problem with this animal. The snake clearly ingested something it shouldn't have, necessitating emergency surgery in order for it to survive. Time was of the essence, but the employees were at a loss on what to do. They consequently contacted the veterinarian for advice. Does he approach them, or should they go to her with the snake? They hoped that would be the initial choice. A manager was prepared to assist her when she explained the circumstances, and they were going to utilize his all-terrain Jeep to navigate the difficult rainforest. The vet goes through a terrifying ordeal. The entire trip lasts roughly 3 hours, a voyage during which the veterinarian frequently questioned whether risking his own life to save the snakes was worthwhile. He might have also been required to assist other creatures in need. The workers at the construction site were also having trouble waiting for the doctor. Their anxiety came to pass. The snake had no intention of remaining where he was. It had waited for a sufficient amount of time and was now attempting to move. The employees used sheet metal plates they had brought with them as supplies to restrict the snake's pathways back into the depths of the jungle because it was still crawling extremely slowly. But this policy had a serious drawback. They had to keep moving in order to continue obstructing the snake's route because they could not completely enclose the snake. The snake was still lying in the same spot where the employees had him when the veterinarian eventually arrived at the scene. However, it became increasingly clear that this would not last for very long because the snake had turned out to be highly hostile by this point. Given the state it was said to be in, there was always a chance that the snake wouldn't recover from this. Nevertheless, the doctor was confident that it would survive the injection after witnessing how actively it was attempting to attack the workers. The only option was to approach the snake while administering the tranquilizers. The doctor awaited the snake's head turning in the opposite direction. She then slowly walked over to the snake and quickly gave it a sedative injection in the lower torso. They now had to wait until the snake was completely unconscious. The snake eventually disappeared altogether. Due to tiredness, some employees' knees fell and their heart rates gradually returned to normal. They were relieved to have survived because they had already experienced several near-death experiences. The large bulge on the snake that the veterinarian had actually come for could now finally receive her full attention. She unlocks the large Jeep from the company's warehouse and gets her surgery child out before setting it up to start working. Nothing more to do but carefully cut through the snake and remove the object at this stage. However, having surgery always carries some danger, especially if it needs to be done in the middle of a rainforest. However, there isn't any other choice. The vet slices into the snake and the bulge with the utmost care and accuracy, and after cutting through the skin, muscle, and esophagus, the source of the swelling is eventually made clear to everyone. But it's not what they had anticipated. They put the majority of their perishables, like meat, in this box, which served as their cooler. But because the meat in this one was rotten, they decided to leave it outside the truck because it smelled awful. Although they believed they had stored the cooler carefully, they were nevertheless baffled as to how the snake had discovered it. The snake must have detected the aroma and mistaken it for prey because it completely ingested it. But regrettably, it swiftly discovered the repercussions of a mistake that may have been the snake's demise. The vet complimented the crew for their heroic efforts to protect both themselves and the snake. She then returned to the city, where she has additional patients awaiting her. Through the chip she planted, she kept an eye on the snake's actions. The operation was a success because the snake is acting entirely normally, according to the veterinarian. She prevented the animal's death.